But when it comes to our community and making decisions about how we're going to spend our resources, how we're going to use our resources, sometimes numbers really tell an even better and more detailed story.
So I came here to Boise State University to talk to Vanessa Fry. She's Assistant Director of the Idaho Policy Institute and also Assistant Research Professor in the School of Public Service. And she's done the seminal work, which you may have seen, looking at the numbers. How much is homelessness costing the taxpayer? What is it doing to our crisis response system? And is it possible to end homelessness in our community?
So the research I did for the city of Boise, rather than looking at the story of a person experiencing homelessness, I took that and looked at the story of 100 people experiencing homelessness. And then we can really see the depth and breadth of their experiences and what impact they're having on the community.
So who are these 100 people?
So I looked at 100 chronically homeless individuals in the community, and so all kinds of people. It could be families, it could be a single man, a single woman, all ages. I looked at adults. I wasn't looking at just specifically children alone, and really from all walks of life and all experiences.
So what do the numbers say? What is the story of these 100 people?
Right, so the community had never done a comprehensive effort to look at the number of costs that were occurring based on chronic homelessness. And so I looked at the costs from the criminal justice system, so that was like policing and the jail. I looked at the hospital systems because we know people experiencing homelessness often aren't getting access to preventative medicine, and so they end up going to the ER. I looked at the costs of emergency shelters and day shelters, and we looked kind of across the board, and the estimate was it was about $5.3 million a year that the community was spending to take care of these 100 people experiencing chronic homelessness.
$5.3 million.
$5.3 million.
So obviously numbers can tell us a lot.
Right.
Numbers can mislead us. Numbers can pinpoint something. So what does that tell you? When you saw that 5.3 million, how do you interpret that?
Well, so if you do the math, it's about 53,000 per person, and then we look into it further. Well, what does that mean? What is that person experiencing? And they're experiencing multiple days in the jail sometimes. They are experiencing physical and mental hardships that end them in the hospital sometimes. So it really does tell us what kind of collectively aggregate the experiences are, but it also tells us that we can be more proactive about the way that we spend those resources than reactive. So what I always say is that $53,000 is primarily all reactive. We're reacting because someone got sick enough that they had to go to the hospital. We're reacting because someone's trespassing at the park after dark, and so we have to give them a misdemeanor that they can't pay, and then they get another one, and then they end up in jail. Those are very reactive things. Instead of talking with the individual and saying, what are your real needs? How can we use those resources to meet those needs in a more proactive fashion so you don't end up in the hospital or in jail?
So what are the proactive solutions? Right.
So the one that best practices across the country, and the one that the research pointed to, is housing first. Permanent supportive housing is what my research found, and then what we found really as a community with the housing and homelessness roundtables.
That's great. And so, did it make you, looking at this research, looking at this story of these 100 people, and then looking at solutions, did it make you more or less hopeful in terms of what we can do as a community?
Yeah, it made me really hopeful, because when it comes down to it, the proactive measures don't actually cost that $5.3 million. And so when we ran the numbers again, it looked like if we put about $1.6 million towards Housing First permanent supportive housing, that we'd really be able to reduce the experiences that these individuals are having with the criminal justice system and emergency medical use. And so to me, that's great, because that's fiscal responsibility. That's social justice. It's really helping some of the people that are the most vulnerable in our community. And what this effort showed me is that we can really work across the community with so many different players to kind of look at something through the numbers. So not using the lens of politics, but using the lens of numbers and saying, well, here's what this means. Can we work together to spend those dollars more proactively and then have a better result? So to me, it's hopeful. Very hopeful.
So do you believe that we can end homelessness?
I do. I think we can end homelessness.